Hey everybody, Connor Renfare here with a special guest, Allison Azuara. Allison, will you please introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Allison. I'm a screenwriter and actor, and I have a podcast as well. It's called And We're Watching. We analyze Disney Channel original movies. So, if you're interested in that, please go check us out.
I have listened to a few of those episodes, and they are pretty funny. I kind of wish you edited my podcast.
I could for a fee.
For a fee? Okay.
Yeah.
The sound effects that you incorporate, so good. I'm too lazy to do sound effects.
I plug them in because when I have to edit so much because we sound dumb, then I have all these like weird transitions. I'm like, let's just put a like boing in there.
You have such a good... Have you ever done any sound editing before?
No.
Because it's like intuitive, like it works. Like I understood immediately what you were going for.
Thank you.
So good. Everybody. Once again, the name of the podcast is
And We're Watching.
But today she is on Renfare, an extension of the From the Margins podcast. And today we're talking about The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, a show that Allison absolutely adores.
Oh no.
Tell us about it.
So, I don't know how many people have actually watched the full thing. I have fully committed to... I watched the entire thing, everything that's out so far. There's a lot of things that are wrong about this show and about this interpretation and about the way that it's done. It could be a really, really good show. I think that's really what's the most disappointing thing, is that it's such good material. And honestly, the title sequence is stunning. And I wish that the title sequence was a better representation of the entire show, but it's not.
So we've been in a few workshop circles together, and you know, when you give feedback, you have to do like the compliment sandwich. So maybe it'll be fun for us to talk about what we like first.
Okay. I do love the aesthetic. I think they absolutely nail it. I would absolutely put this show on like at a Halloween party and put the sound off.
Right, maybe because it looks better than it sounds.
It looks amazing, and I think it would be an amazing like commercial campaign. I think whoever is doing like art direction is nailing it. I think costume set are really, really good.
They're just missing product placement.
Exactly.
What kind of products do you think should be on the show?
I feel like it would cater to Gen Z, maybe, I don't know.
I was thinking like Procter & Gamble, like Arm & Hammer toothpaste. Like,
oh, good point.
You've got some like, I don't know, like...
I picture something that would be on like on Instagram, like an influencer type thing, like a startup new type of makeup or bag.
A bag. Oh,
yeah.
So they're like actually just flashing the brand.
Yes.
The camera zooms in. I'm thinking like full-on native advertising, like you've got potion in your teeth, don't worry, just get some toothpaste.
You've got potion in your teeth.
You've got like potion stains. Okay, I'm not really good at like quippy on the fly.
That's good.
But yeah, if the potion has stained your teeth, you need like this fluoride toothpaste.
Yeah.
Like even witches use it.
That might work. What do you like about it? You, to be clear though, you haven't seen all of it.
I've not seen all of it. I made it halfway through part 2. I had to stop. And maybe we'll get to when I talk about when I just absolutely could not go any farther. But, you know, as bad as the acting is, I do enjoy watching them act. Like these little kids give it their all. They're just so passionate.
They're trying.
They're trying.
I think there are 2 specifically really good performances, and I think the rest kind of just like suffer in comparison. Zelda.
Oh, really?
And Ambrose.
No, I do like parts of Aunt Zelda.
Yeah.
Part 1, she was a little abusive and...
That's a whole thing, and I think that's more on the writing of the character.
Right.
But I think her performance is the most, like, grounded in sincerity. Same with Ambrose. And then after that would be, what's her name? Prudence. She actually, I think, does her best stuff in season 3.
Okay.
So, sorry you missed.
Maybe I'll start again. It's been hard.
Yeah.
I do like Aunt Zelda's like cigarette holder that looks like a boiled egg like contraption. I never understood, and you don't actually see her smoking the cigarettes, right? She's always just holding them.
Good point.
I don't know if that's like a don't endorse bad behavior thing, but they just really wanted her to hold a cigarette.
They endorse a lot of bad behavior on this show, so I think they should.
Well,
they can just go for it.
I was thinking like when I was watching Teen Wolf on MTV.
I loved Teen Wolf.
There were so many like commercials about like why smoking is bad, and then they would cut to like scenes of the content of like underage drinking and other illicit substance abuse. But I'm like, no, tobacco is where we draw the line.
Teen Wolf was actually a good sort of comparison because it's definitely the same genre, and I think Teen Wolf was a lot better. Well, it started off a lot better.
I loved Teen Wolf.
Because it was, it plays into more of a campiness, I think, that, like, Sabrina just, like, takes itself way too seriously. Teen Wolf did fall off, though. Like, I had to stop watching, I forget what season, where it just went batshit crazy. And they were like, oh, and now we're in Mexico for no reason, even though we're in high school.
Yeah, and, like, half the original cast is dead.
Yes. Yes, and they're like, let's just kill off, like, the main characters and like love interests and things. No spoilers.
No spoilers. You don't know. You don't know which love interest.
In case you're really committed to catching up on Teen Wolf.
Yeah, Teen Wolf seasons 1 and 2 were great.
Yeah, I really liked it.
Season 3, I noticed, is when it was trying to get darker and edgier. And it wasn't like bad, but it wasn't good either. So
right, and like I think where these shows succeed the most, and Sabrina didn't really try to tap into this too much, is where like in Buffy, they're using high school and adolescence and the supernatural as like a metaphor. You know, this idea that growing up is hell and, you know, transforming into an adult and like having to make peace with what the world actually is and your place in it is like monstrous. You know, I think that's the biggest strength of these shows. And Teen Wolf did a lot more of that, where it's like he's juggling, you know, how do I deal with this huge transformation in my life that's a secret, but then also like try to keep up appearances at school and get what I want and like get the girl and, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Play lacrosse. Yeah. Well, while we're on this topic, why don't we talk about the human arc in Sabrina? Just the regular high school, the everyday, the characters that, for what I've seen, kind of just disappeared. And maybe you can like assure me that they come back in part 3, but part 2, their contribution to the show is greatly diminished, all except Theo, who I find very problematic, but we can get into that.
They do come back, like all of the human characters play a big role in the third part, but not in a cohesive way, you know, more just like they're thrown in there. I think it's like they want the benefit of having like a spooky school gang, like, you know, the Scoobies, but without having to do any of the work to set it up. So instead of dealing with like, here are her human friends trying to understand and integrate with this magical world that is, maybe it seems, still a secret from most of the humans in Greendale. I don't know. Unclear. I bet you they don't know either. Instead of doing that, it's just like they sort of go away for a little bit while she's at the Magic Academy, and then they just come back and they literally call themselves like some sort of spooky gang or something.
They call themselves Wicca.
No.
Oh,
they like have a name.
They get a new name?
The like Harvey and Roz and Theo and Sabrina, they have like a cute little name, but they don't actually seem like they're trying to work together. And like Harvey especially is just like so unbelievably out of place in all this magic stuff.
Well, wait a second. Speaking of Teen Wolf, in part 1, you meet Harvey's grandfather, who is the actor who played Allison's grandfather in Teen Wolf. Oh. And they have the exact same plot thing where Allison's family was werewolf hunters and Harvey's family is witch hunters.
Did they? Because they completely abandoned that plot thread.
Right, yeah, like vanished, but like, yeah, Harvey, like the Kinkle family were like witch hunter.
Honestly,
in part 1.
I would like that if that was like a serious part of the story, but it's not. I feel like in season 1, they just kind of laid a lot of seeds and then they're just like, we'll see which ones we pick up later.
And why are they called parts instead of seasons?
That might be just because it's comic.
Is this not meant to be like...
I mean, they're definitely just seasons because they're normal length seasons.
Yeah. Is it meant to like... This isn't a serialized TV show. This is a collection of art.
But they're not doing that at all.
Yeah.
They're very much treating it like just sequential seasons.
Yeah.
That would be sort of interesting if it was like, these are different parts of Sabrina's life, or different, huge adventures that don't occur all at the same time.
Chilling adventures.
Chilling.
Supremely. What is the most chilling part for you?
How bad it is.
Oh.
It's chilling.
I'm chilled by the hours of my life I won't get back.
Yes. I do have to say, though, for the most part, their special effects are pretty good. Their monsters look scary. They look scary, and that's what you need to know, because usually they don't act or sound scary. Again, you could just mute it, and it would be better.
That's the takeaway. That is the hot take of the episode. Just put it on mute, and it's so good.
Yeah.
Just, like, create dialogue in your head.
It would be better that way. The only downside is I do think that, what's her name? Kiernan
Shipka?
Yeah, I do think she is especially miscast in this role.
Ooh.
So I would need someone to replace her.
I just realized what we should have done is just taken the entire first episode and done our own original overdub of it.
I would be glad to do that.
Yeah?
Yes.
You'll take on every female role.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Remembering that first episode, though, it's also just a bad script, so...
Truly.
We just have to redo it. The whole thing.
Redo it. Let's not overdub it. Let's just completely reshoot it.
Yes.
Recast it.
Recast it, please.
Yeah. I'll be Miss Wardwell.
Nice.
You can be Sabrina.
Thank you.
It'll be perfect. That is my least favorite part about the whole thing, or where I feel the most potential is lost, is how in the first episode you meet nice, kind, gentle Miss Wardwell, and then you see her get killed and replaced by Lilith. Spoiler alert. What I loved about Miss Wardwell is like, she's like a comic relief, kind of like a sassy bad girl, and it's like, it would be a lot more suspenseful if you didn't know she was evil right off the bat. If she was just like, oh, she's in the know, she's this potential mentor figure for Sabrina, but then from the very beginning we know that she was killed and replaced, so everything she does that's funny, I don't find funny, because it's like, no, that's a murderer. That's not a funny character, that's a bad guy. Anytime she's like being nice or guiding Sabrina down her path, I'm like, well, that's no good. Like, I don't even get the option of like knowing subconsciously she's evil. I know like completely that she's bad, and I don't enjoy her as much as I feel like the writers wanted me to.
Yeah. So I forget what happens to her in season 2. Is she still there? She's
there, and she's like in the background just telling people's fortunes and threatening to kill everybody at the school on Valentine's Day. The woman she switched places with, her fiance, comes back.
Yes.
And she like...
Played by Alexis Denisof, star of Buffy and Angel. I love him so much. He's also married to Allison Hannigan, just so you know.
I didn't notice.
Yeah. He's an amazing actor, so I'm really sad that they brought him in just to like kill him off immediately.
Yeah.
So what happens with Miss Wardwell is she comes... So stupid. I need to like trace what actually happened.
It's so convoluted.
Yeah. So at the end of part 2, they're like, Lilith, you're gonna go be the queen of hell. So she goes to hell. And then as Miss Wardwell, right? So we think that's that on that. But then starting in season 3, we meet her again. She's still as Miss Wardwell. And they throw in a line of like, why do you still look like Miss Wardwell? And she's like, oh, I grew accustomed to this skin suit because look at me. And that's sweet and cute, but I kind of don't buy it for a second. That, Lilith, the oldest sinner of all time, is like, let me be this old school teacher. But...
School marm.
Yeah.
As she called herself.
But at the same time, we get the real Miss Wardwell returned, but she has like no memory of what happened to her. So she's just there and confused. And we don't spend a lot of time with that. We don't really see her a whole ton. We just know that she's confused. By the end of the season, somehow, this is so silly to say, knowing that you have no context for what I'm talking about, but at the end of the season, the devil comes to her and I guess convinces her that, well, the devil comes to her, but he's dressed up as a preacher and convinces her that the devil is real and in town and there's like witchcraft is real. This conversation isn't even fully fleshed out, like I am filling this in, but I think he tells her that like Sabrina and the Spellmans are like the root cause of all this evil and witchcraft in the town. And then Miss Wardwell goes over to the Spellman house and shoots Zelda. Really no reason why that happened. I think they were just like in the last couple of episodes and we were like, we need to escalate things. So then Zelda's like on her deathbed. She comes back, she's fine. But
yeah, witches can't die by like human bullets, can they?
I don't know how it exists in this universe. But anyway, so then they like barely touch on it. They don't really go back to her. There's like one moment where after Zelda's okay, where she's like, oh, Miss Wardwell shot me. I almost forgot in all the hubbub or something, you know? And so
this is the best actress on the show, to be clear.
Yes. So they didn't really do anything with that. I think instead of trying to find a through line for an antagonist in this season, they were just like, let's throw all the spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. Because that could have been compelling to have Miss Wardwell be the antagonist this season, to be like, she returned, she knows what happened to her, and now all of her, if she's a very religious woman, all of her beliefs have been validated. Like, she knows the devil is real and that he's working to corrupt everyone in her town. And it's her goal to go after the Spellmans with a righteous cause. I think that would have been a far more compelling season. Instead, I will say the main antagonist of this season is a group of pagan witches who come in, but they're also carnies because they're a carnival that comes into town.
It's just a season-long carnival?
Well, no, they don't even come in at the beginning because that would also be a through line. No, they come in like, I don't know when, and then all of a sudden they're there. And the secret is they want to sacrifice all the humans to the Green Man, who I think is their version of trying to say the Wicker Man, because I don't know, it seems like they're leaning into this like paganism trend, you know, with Midsummer and this sort of very earthy view of like witchcraft, but they're also very silly. And literally this is how they try to trick all the humans to go to the carnival on one specific day so that they can kill them. So what they do is they make an announcement over the loudspeaker at school telling everyone that how exciting, everyone has free tickets to the carnival and free caramel apple. And then they don't show up because, I don't know, Sabrina interferes.
She's like, caramel is bad for you.
Yeah. And then literally the like ringmaster, who's also Pan, the god.
Oh, wow. Wait a second. So one of the pagan gods is leading a pagan cult for a different deity.
Yes, and also Medusa is part of them. It's so confused.
Medusa? Like the Gorgon?
Yeah.
Like Perseus killed her like 2,600 years ago. Why is she back?
I don't know. They call her something different, but she is essentially Medusa. Anyway, so then the ringmaster, they don't come, and he's like, why didn't they come? We offered them free tickets! This is like life or death. The most serious part of their nefarious plot.
So I already know the answer to this because I've watched the show. But you mentioned how this is a pagan cult. Mm-hmm. And you like took care to separate the pagan witches from our main witches that we follow. Mm-hmm. And like these witches are more Satanists.
Yeah,
Luciferian.
So this is the first time I think we get an actual acknowledgement of what kind of magic these witches have. So basically they say that they're the Church of Satan, so their power is derived from Satan. And the pagan witches, their power is like derived from the earth. And then also they like, you know, they want to, I don't know, cover all their bases. So they bring in also a voodoo witch. So she's another type of magic, I guess. Okay, so I'm reading a book right now called The Anatomy of Story, and something we talk about is moral vision, and that's supposed to be the theme of your story. The moral vision is what the writer pictures the world is supposed to look like. this show specifically is so confused on that because they try to worship the devil, but in a way that's not about, it has nothing to do, right, with like the Church of Satan, but they're trying to do it like, let's worship the bad, evil devil, but also Sabrina wants to be good, but also they, like, heaven is a bad place. They're like, instead of saying what the hell, they say, what the heaven?
What the heaven? Let's get the heaven out of here, Sabrina.
Yeah. So I think that's just very confused about what it's trying to say about good and evil, which is what this show should be talking about, but it's not, because in season 3, she also goes on, Sabrina becomes the queen of hell.
Oh, good.
Yeah, of course. But she also wants to do good things.
Oh, not good.
It's all just, I'm just so confused about what they're trying to say. And I had the same problem, not to this extent, obviously, but the same sort of issue comes up with the Addams Family, where it's like, okay, if we're a dark, spooky, evil family, and we like to torture each other, but we also love each other. So it just gets confused, I think, and that sort of happens with Zelda and Hilda, because Zelda's extremely abusive to Hilda, right? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. I don't know what love is in this universe.
Precisely. It's not that they don't know. I don't think they bothered to consider. I think the show exists for pure contrarian edge. Mm-hmm. It's like, they call God the false God. They, like, unironically worship Satan like a 14-year-old in Hot Topic. It's so cringy.
They call Jesus the Nazarene.
Oh, he's in the show now too?
So there's a big part of season 3 where Sabrina, as the Queen of Hell, is trying to stop Caliban from usurping her.
Caliban from The Tempest?
Like, essentially. This is where, like, it just...
A Shakespeare character.
Yeah,
Good.
it just starts to feel like fan fiction, and sort of like how Once Upon a Time was, where it's like, ooh, wouldn't it be funny if we put in all these characters? Like, Dorian Gray.
Oh, yeah, he's just a, like, random, like, server at their little gentleman's club.
I think it's his club.
Oh.
To be fair.
Then why is he working the floor of his own club?
Because...
Or he only does that for Nick Scratch.
I don't know.
Who's obviously the devil, right?
You have no idea what happens in season. It's a whole thing. Okay. The devil, first of all, goes inside of Nick. Kinky. And literally, at some point, talks to Sabrina in Nick Scratch's body, but as the devil, her dad tells her, call me daddy.
Wait, like Edward Spellman? Like her father?
No.
Oh, wait, okay.
Oh, you didn't finish season 2, did you? We find out that Satan is Sabrina's biological father.
Oh, not Edward Spellman. See, I thought Satan just wanted to marry her. I didn't know he was like her biological dad.
Yeah, I think I'd be more compelled to that story. I think making him her dad is like weird and confused.
So she's the daughter. She's the daughter of Satan.
Clearly.
And he impregnated the mortal wife of the high priest. Mm-hmm. Great. Fantastic.
Okay, so a big part of season 3 is there's this competition between Caliban and Sabrina to ultimately decide who's going to be the ruler of hell. And it involves acquiring the unholy regalia, which include King Herod's crown.
Cute. His baby smothering blanket.
Yes. Shit, what else was it? It's like Pilate's bowl, I think,
that he washes his hands in.
And then Judas Iscariot's bag of silver.
Yeah, Judas is silver.
Of course.
And all of these things are meant to like be worn and carried by the regent of hell?
No, because they're all lost.
Oh.
So it's more like a quest to find them, and they're very important. Again, very confusing because... I don't know, because it's like, it seems like they're going off of the interpretation of a Christian hell that is literally exists because of Lucifer falling from heaven.
Yeah, like that mythology is established within this series.
I don't know. It's all just so confused. It's hard to even talk about. So Sabrina is written to be extremely stupid, which is infuriating for your lead character when you're not in a comedy. And she makes not only does she make bad choices, she also makes inconsequential choices where instead of her deciding to do something and then that moves the plot forward, she arbitrarily just does something and that accidentally causes something else to happen. This entire plot is just accidental. There's one specific moment where she puts a salt circle around the devil, but it's Nick Scratch, but it's the devil inside of him. And she's visiting him to just see if he's okay. She's trying to reach Nick because she knows that he's in there and he can talk to her sometimes. This is so convoluted. I'm like, can anyone understand this who hasn't seen it? And then she's leaving because so it's really important to make sure that Satan stays locked in this salt circle and he doesn't escape, because if he escapes, he's going to be really mad that they trapped him in a teenage boy's body. She visits him in this little cell, and then she goes to leave, and her foot drags through the salt circle and breaks it. And she has no idea.
Wow. You don't think she would, take extra care to, watch her feet and step around?
No, because she's stupid. Okay, the second example I have of her being so stupid is at the very end when she's getting the bag of silver from Judas. Well, technically it's not from Judas. So she visits Judas, who's sort of petrified in a rock. And she asks him where to get the silver. And he just tells her, because why not? Let's just help her with the story. And the silver is located in Vlad the Impaler's tomb.
What?
So she goes there.
To Dracula.
Yes, but he's dead, right? So she goes to his coffin, she crunches the bag out of his bones, and then she's walking away, and you would think, I don't know, you're in a very dangerous place, you're on a very dangerous mission, you would be careful and be quick. But she walks away, doesn't look back at the coffin ever, and then she decides before leaving, she should count the 30 pieces of silver. So she just puts her hand in gingerly, and she's like, 1, 2, 3, so slowly. And then of course, Vlad wakes up and comes over and glamours her and then bites her neck.
So is she a vampire now?
No. She stops him. Also, you have to drink the blood of a vampire.
Oh, right, you do.
So.
Yeah.
She does give a really good quippy line about feminism. You know how white feminism is just about lip service to social justice? Vlad sucks her neck and then she's able to... Oh, he breaks away because she has the blood of an angel running in her veins.
An angel?
Lucifer.
Oh, okay.
Right. And so he's foaming at the mouth. He's nasty, doesn't taste good. And then she's like, yeah, my father's an angel. And then she goes, also consent.
Consent is very important, Allison.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Sabrina would want you to know that.
Oh, yeah, of course. Consent for a vampire to murder you. Of course.
Because, the show has always been a bastion of consent up to this moment. And it's not, tonally discordant to put that as, a punchline in right now.
Meanwhile, in the scene before this, Judas had told her there's an easy way to get the coins. All you have to do is betray someone you love with a kiss. So she's like, okay, I'll just do that. And she goes to Harvey and she's almost going to kiss him against his will to get the coins, but then she decides against it.
Because consent.
Oh, yeah, because consent. Speaking of consent...
That was her entire character development for that episode. Didn't you catch it, Allison?
Of course.
That was a subtle way for her character to grow and learn a lesson.
They do this in I think the first episode, where they do this glamour, where they trick these boys into thinking that they're kissing someone that they're not or something.
Right, and then they're kissing each other.
Yeah, and I think that's extremely problematic because, again, if consent mattered, then you would never do that as a way to punish someone.
Mm-hmm. Also, homosexuality is inherently bad,
right,
and something that is you should be ashamed to have done.
Right, this is the worst thing we can do to them is make them kiss each other.
Yeah, let's talk about how the show fails in its like social justice lip service.
I think the biggest problem is that it's trying so hard to tell us how woke it is in dialogue. Not in extensive dialogue too, mind you, just like quippy one-liners. They're not putting any of that effort into the actual story, because stories that are actually championing feminism and social justice just do it. They don't have to tell you they're doing it because they're already doing it. And the whole point of storytelling is to provide like a metaphor for the message you're trying to relay. And it completely defeats the purpose when you're just putting it in the text in such a shallow way. Can you think of other examples from earlier seasons? Because I haven't seen those in a while.
Oh no, because I've like cataloged season 1 because I had to like just go on the offensive with all of my friends and tell them like why the show is actually trash.
People like it?
Yes, I do know a few people who like it.
Whew.
So get ready for those downvotes.
Yeah.
Those like unsubscribes.
I know. Well, you know the like Riverdale fan base has a pretty like rabid community, so I think they're going to come for us too.
Oh, good. So part 1 of Sabrina is just a huge social justice, like, mixed messaging mess. First off, Sabrina is woke intersectional feminist because of their little club, the women's intersectional cultural something advancement.
Wicca.
Yeah, Wicca, like their club at school. It's called Wicca. And that's what the acronym stands for. And it's like, so she's supposed to be so woke. She's supposed to, like, know things. And then she goes home to her aunts, where one aunt just repeatedly murders the other one whenever she's in a bad mood, and then revives her in, like, a pit outside. And it's like, does none of this wokeness, like, come back into the home sphere? Does none of this, like, make you wonder, like, maybe... And Sabrina is, like, a little tortured about... should she put her name in Satan's book and be an evil witch? So she does have some scruples, you know, nominally.
But it's also just, again, it's so confused because this show is specifically going for a Christian interpretation of Satan. But at the same time, they're trying to, like, shove in other ideas about... So they're just conflating Satan with evil. And that's the biggest problem because Sabrina is struggling with like, oh, I want to be good, but do I sign my name in Satan's book? But it's also, that's where all her magic is derived from Satan. So then they're saying, it's like, it's the show also subsequently saying that magic is evil? And it kind of seems like not on purpose, but they are.
Yeah. I mean, I kept thinking like there was going to be some huge plot twist where Satan isn't really the source of the magic. He had just convinced all of these people to worship him. And, like, through some consequence of that, they were getting access to the magic.
So, at the end of season 2...
I'm so good at calling this.
Well, not quite. But basically, they, like, dethrone him.
Neat.
And they kick him out. And then they decide, I guess, to worship Lilith in his place. But he's still the source of all their magic. So then they basically, through the course of season 3, lose all of their powers. So then they have to decide to derive their magic from a different source. So literally in the final episode, they're like, oh, let's go pray to Hecate or something.
Wow. Like the actual Greek goddess of magic. Like,
yeah.
Nobody ever thought to, like, do that before. Like, maybe this Satan guy's a little weird. Like, our Thanksgiving special is all about cannibalism. Maybe this isn't, like, a wholesome thing that we should bring into the 21st century.
Right. I really think that's, like, the biggest problem with this show is that it's very confused about how it feels about good and evil and about what that means and what it looks like in actuality.
How do you feel, and I know this is like kind of a shallow liberal thing to talk about, but I think it is actually a good kind of indicator if the show's living up to its own morals. What do you think about like their representation on the show?
It feels like lip service. It feels like we're gonna put in her best friend to be a black woman and her other best friend to be trans masculine, and that's that. And we don't engage with it any further. We don't see it in any sort of particular lens because the show is ultimately about Sabrina, and Sabrina is like so far removed from her friend group throughout the entire story. She comes back and they keep telling us that they're best friends, but we don't see that they're best friends at all. I think the biggest problem is having a white woman doing all this lip service. That's literally the brand of white feminism. It sort of undoes any sort of, goodwill they did with casting and in the storytelling. They do something really sweet where they do have Theo develop a relationship with a guy in season 3, and that's really sweet, and I think that's good representation. I mean, I'm obviously not one to speak for that, but I've literally never seen a relationship between a queer boy and queer trans boy. I think that's great. I'm like, other than that, there's not much going on. Ambrose and Prudence get much more time in season 3, which is great, and they're in a couple. That's super interesting, but...
Are they like in a polycule? Like, are they polyamorous?
I don't think so.
Oh.
Not that we see.
Because everything I've seen, they've only like engaged in orgies with each other.
I know.
So lots of orgies in this show.
Right.
About high schoolers, by the way.
Oh yeah, gross. Well, Sabrina's still a virgin at the end of season 3, just so you know. So
wow, and
there
like
you go.
She was like gung ho during Lupercalia.
Yeah.
So if only that werewolf hadn't interrupted her unholy abstinence. Whatever. Love it.
Ambrose and Prudence are almost too good for the show. When I'm watching scenes between them, I just wish they had their own show. They're much more compelling. They're much less problematic the way they're written. Because they're characters of color, maybe the writers feel like, oh, we don't have to explicitly, have them talk about how woke they are, like they do with Sabrina. And so maybe that's why there's less of this just cheap language in their dialogue, which is great. But it's sad because I just wish they had their own show. And, at the end of season 3, they do shove in another, woke thing. I don't know. It's like, on one hand, yeah, I guess for younger people watching this, it is good for them to see this. But on the other hand, it's so inorganic in the story, and you can feel it coming from, a
checklist.
Yeah, it's just coming from a need to pretend we're progressive. So at the very end of season 3, the voodoo witch comes to stay with them, and then literally in one of the last few scenes of the season, Zelda and her kiss. It's great, obviously, yeah. Well, first of all, witches should all be lesbians because...
Of course.
Right. So...
Naturally.
It's great to see, but they didn't do almost anything to develop their relationship before that. It was like she comes in a couple of the last episodes, she helps save her life, great, but there's no real emotional connection between them. There's no building romance. It's really feels like they just shoved it in at the last second.
Right, and it would have been bad even if it was a straight couple kissing.
Yeah.
It was just a bad kiss, and it's somehow worse that it was
Well, I don't know. It would be worse, I think, if it was a straight kiss, because...
Well, if it was a straight kiss, then the audience can just roll their eyes and be like, there we go, forced coupling, because two people just had to be together, and now that it's two women kissing, it's oh, yes.
Right.
Representation.
Yeah.
Thank God, finally, these two people who've never talked to each other can be shown, snogging.
Right.
I was obsessed with the first episode of season 2, where she just really wants to be top boy.
Oh, I forgot.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is the pinnacle of, that lean-in,
yes.
girl boss feminism. Where she's just well, can anybody be top boy? And they're like, well, it's traditionally male. And she's like, well, I'm gonna be top boy. She didn't even argue to change it to top student or anything.
Right, and again, it's all inorganic. She doesn't actually want any of these things. It's just for the sake of appearing very feminist.
Yeah.
That happens so much in season 3 with her being the queen of hell. She doesn't do anything in her actions and her behavior.
Now that is full-on girl boss. Queen of hell. Get it, Sabrina? Yas, queen.
doesn't show in any way that she wants to be the queen of hell, but then in the end it seems she really wants to be the queen of hell. And I don't understand her character, because there's just no substance there. She doesn't want to do anything. She feels like, how would you describe her?
I don't know how to describe her.
Exactly.
She's just like a contrarian. Like, every time somebody tells her to do something, she says, I think I'll do it. And then it's like, Sabrina, you should be evil. And she's like, I'm going to do something good. And she does it poorly. Sabrina, you must do the right thing. I think I'm going to be evil today. And she does that poorly. Like...
Yeah, I don't think this character has any, like, driving force or...
She doesn't want anything.
Yeah, I don't think she
doesn't
has
need anything.
Any core beliefs at all. Like, I don't think she has any things that she holds to be true. It's truly just dependent on whoever pushes her in which direction.
Right. But she's like running for top boy. And it's, sorry, I think about this episode
Top
more than I
boy.
should. And it's paired with another storyline of Theo, who we're still calling Susie at this point, but like coming to terms with like his gender identity. And he thinks he's going to express that by joining the basketball team.
Oh, yeah.
And... if he was like a good basketball player, if like we had known he actually loved the sport, this would have meant something. But he's actually terrible at it. He's half the size of all the other boys, and he's rightfully told, you know, you're not going to be able to do this. I mean, he should have been allowed to try out, of course, because
Right.
you've got to give everybody access. But at the end of the day, it's like an athletic competition. You know, you're going to lose out to people who are better, people who have been training. But it's like, because he's a trans man, he deserves this automatically.
Right, or it's just like, but they're not doing any work to show us that this is what he wants to do.
Right, yeah, like, if he was passionate about basketball and if he was good at it, then yes, he should have deserved it. But, like, he came up with this on a whim, almost like Sabrina with Top Boy. It's like, on a whim, I'm just going to go and excel at this thing and prove my place. Except he sucks at basketball, and the only reason he gets on the team is because, one, Sabrina enchants him to be good at basketball suddenly, so he cheats his way on, which is like what all of the TERFs say trans women are doing in women's sports in the first place.
Right.
So I'm like, oh my god, this is reductive messaging.
I think, yeah, so much like mixed messaging, because it's also like, it seems like the show is just trying to make some statement about gender roles where, okay, now that Susie goes by Theo, clearly he wants to play sports because boys play sports, you know?
It's like, why wasn't Theo playing sports before he transitioned? Why did he get a complete identity overhaul? Like, when you're trans, well, I can't say this for sure, but from my friends who have shared their experiences with me, it's not that they completely change who they are. It might seem that way to the people they were closeted to before transitioning, but it's like you allow yourself to do things, but you don't become a different person.
Right, it's more like you're becoming more of who you
You
already
really
are.
were, yeah. And maybe you find interests that you didn't know about because you never explored them. But, like, that's not the same as, like, thinking you're entitled to be on the basketball team.
Right. And we also just don't spend any time with this story.
Right.
Where it's like, instead of spending time with how Theo feels about his identity and gender roles and what are his actual interests, we don't get any of that. You know, it's like, let's just write some arbitrary plot so then we can have Sabrina meddle. And that's another thing that really bothers me. Sabrina meddling with magic. That's why it's just so laughable that she can pretend to care about consent. Because if you cared about consent, you wouldn't be interfering with people's lives using magic without them knowing about it. Like, that is a huge breach of trust. And to do that, to interfere with someone's life, you can't say you care about consent and then do that.
Yeah, like when she revives Harvey's brother from the dead. Like,
Right? She has, like, absolutely no thought or care in the world about consequences or about, like, gravity of life and death.
Right, like she kills one of her classmates and is like, we'll just revive her later, it's okay.
Right.
Like,
She gets worse in season 3 with that because they give her more of these, like, quippy lines where she literally says at some point, I really don't understand anything or something, you know? And it's trying to play into something. I think they want some brevity, but I honestly, the thing is, I don't know what they're trying to do. And that's the most frustrating thing about it. Like, I just want to know what the writers are trying to do. Or if they're trying to do anything at all, or if they're just like, let's just keep writing plots and not really think about it. No shade. No shade to working writers out there.
Right.
You do what you gotta do.
If you were in the writer's room for Sabrina, what would you, like, champion? If you were given, like, some say in where the show goes next, what would you pitch?
I mean, I think the most compelling thing about this world is the battle between good and evil. What I love most about using magic as in storytelling, which is something I like to do, magic is power, you know? When we use magic in storytelling, it should be to give power to those people who do not have it. You know, I think magic should be perceived as a positive thing, not inherently positive because it is powerful and there are consequences. I think magic is a serious thing and it should be given weight and it should be given a moral perspective. And they don't do that here. It really seems like they're trying to code magic as evil in a lot of ways in this show, especially the way that she uses it. You know, she is using it to kill people and to interfere with people's lives and then to help Satan and, you know, like, I wish they put more intention behind the use of magic and behind the choices that the main character makes. I think that's, you know, the story should be driven by the main character making active choices. If it's just her living her life and things keep happening to her, that's not a story. We're just watching something happen to a character. Like, a story needs to have a moral imperative, right? I don't know. Right,
no, that was beautiful. Wow, I can't believe you had that, like, just ready to go, like, perfect, like, closing thoughts.
Thank you.
Like, I don't even want to drag this out anymore. That was, like, a solid conclusion. You said magic is, like, giving power to the disenfranchised. It should be used with, like, full gravity and weight of the situations it affects. We need an active character making active decisions. You're even giving us, like, free writing, like, education. Wow.
Oh my god. You're welcome.
All right. Once again, everybody, this was Allison Azuara.
And you can follow me on Twitter at Allison Harhar. And you can listen to my podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And it's called And We're Watching.
And it is really good. Please check her out. And also keep listening to me as well. Listen to both of us. She's so talented.
Connor is also talented.
Thank you. Well, it was a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. All right, everybody. Loves and kisses. Remember to vote, but only if you're going to vote for a good person. Okay, bye.